I think for many, many years, people thought of George Eastman only as the photography man, not as the music man. George's passion was music. When he came home from the office, the music started, and music played day and night.
George Eastman loved music, and so when he designed his home in 1905, it had a huge conservatory in it where he could not only listen to music from a pipe organ, but he could play Edison cylinder phonographs, other kinds of records as they became available. He bought a Steinway piano so there could be music in another room.
He had a roll changer for the automatic roll player on which you could load 10 rolls of music and put it on auto play, and it played all night while he slept.
Because he loved music so much, and because I think pipe organs were kind of the way for wealthy people to sort of show off their wealth at the time, George Eastman got an Aeolian organ, something that was designed just for residences, specially designed by this company to give music in almost like a stereo sound way, because you would have pipes hidden on one area of the house and the other area of the house. So when Mr. Eastman sat in his conservatory, he heard an entire Philharmonic orchestra playing just for him.
The sound, and I think it was how Mr. Eastman wanted it, just kind of comes from within the house. That's part of the beauty of it. It's a relatively quiet organ. It's an orchestral organ, has a lot of string stops on it.
Having this organ dispersed all through the house in a way that he specifically wanted to hear it, positioning pipes where he wanted them positioned, that made the organ, I think, more unique than the average Aeolian.
So you play it, but you sometimes feel someone else is playing it because it's buried deeply in chambers around the house, so you don't get this immediate feedback like you would with a church organ, where the pipes are right there in front of you.
Until electricity came onto the scene, the pipes of a pipe organ had to be connected to the keyboard. With electricity, you could place them remotely. So when Mr. Eastman decided to have this surround sound experience of his during breakfast every morning, he could have one organist playing an organ that had 10 chambers surrounding the whole room. And the effect for him was rather like being a conductor of an orchestra.
Mr. Eastman actually expanded his home 9 feet 4 inches so his conservatory could get a little bigger. Why? So he could accommodate more people at these musicales. Most people would never think of cutting a steel reinforced concrete house for a cost of $750,000 just to get 9 feet 4 inches. But Mr. Eastman he was very focused on having this be a great place to listen to and enjoy music, not only by himself when he had breakfast, but at evenings and lunches when he entertained and he did business here at his home. George Eastman died in 1932, and in his will, he gave the entire historic home with furniture that his family didn't want to the University of Rochester. When the U of R decided it was a very expensive place to live and maintain this building, they went back to the U of R campus, and we became a museum, and renovations took place to get us ready to open as a museum in 1949.
None of what we see here today was here. This room, the conservatory, was empty. It had one big viewfinder camera in the middle of the floor and a lot of pictures randomly hung on the walls. That was it.
The institution felt that the space was better used as an exhibition space. Back then, in 1949, we only had the historic home. So we had very small amounts of space to put our collections of cameras, photographs, and movies in, and I think they felt it was better used as a gallery.
They needed gallery space. They needed space to show photographs, and an organ didn't really fit into that plan.
A pipe organ is an expensive luxury, and when it doesn't play well, it sounds awful. And this was a photography museum, and so it didn't work.
Now our mission is very different because we are, with the restoration of the house and the activities we have here, trying to keep Eastman's legacy alive, and music and the pipe organ is very important to that. In 1982, we were doing some musical things with the pipe organ programs on Sundays. And The Rochester Theater Organ Society was a group of volunteers that had come to help us hook up our organ roll player. They also helped to do a chart of what worked, what didn't work, and try to get as much of it working as possible. They couldn't do certain things as volunteers, and so they asked me to find someone to actually come in and tune and do some of these repairs. And so when I looked into my archives, I found all kinds of correspondence from the Parsons Pipe Organ Company that had been working for George Eastman since the great-grandparents were running the company. And so that's why I called them, and they've been working with us ever since.
We serviced many of the larger organs in town, and my grandfather knew so many people, and I suspect a lot of that had to do with George Eastman and recommendations from that.
It was a huge honor not only to work at the largest international museum of photography, but to work in the house where George Eastman lived, where my grandfather, great-grandfather had worked for almost 100 years.
The opportunity to work with the organ was of interest to us immediately, and we started out just servicing and trying to keep it going.
The north organ is a mystery.
When I first started here at Eastman House, there was no north organ. We had tabs on the console, but no pipes.
The first time I sat here, I thought, north organ, wonder what that meant.
Well, a fire happened in this north organ chamber room, and the fire destroyed the blower and quite a number of the pipes. It delayed the opening of our museum by a few months. That room was never thought about as an organ chamber again. The idea of building an organ from scratch or finding the same kinds of Aeolian organ pipes designed just for George Eastman's residence, we thought it was impossible.
Finding a replacement instrument was a dream.
That's always been our goal, is to get this organ back into shape, and it's always been a very slow process up until Dr. Ziff came on the scene.
There was an ad, Aeolian pipe organ for sale or donated to a worthy place. And I sent an email immediately, and 10 minutes later I had an answer back that it was a 40-rank pipe organ by Aeolian. It was a player completely restored, and it was Opus 1345. The one that was missing from here was 1416, really close in pipe organ terms. 1982 is when Dr. Richard Ziff started restoring this instrument. That meant completely re-leathering, reworking, taking care of every part of it, and putting it back, as he said, museum quality, and he really did.
These kinds of jobs are difficult for companies that have a staff of people to focus on all the details, and Dr. Ziff is obviously a very smart man. We could see he was a collector and a restorer, and this organ, I think, just happened to be the biggest thing he had done.
He did an amazing job. It's top quality work. We're very lucky that he went to the level of detail that he went to.
And he realized that if he wanted this organ to survive him and keep on playing, it had to go somewhere else. You don't leave a pipe organ in your home, especially one that's 40 ranks. A normal church organ can be 12, 20, 25 ranks, but not 40. That's a lot. After many months of trying to raise the money here, I had to write to Richard Ziff an email and say, we can't get it. You know, we're having a heck of a time. How long do you want to wait while we try to raise the money? And after a month or two, he wrote back and he said, well, what if I donated the money to move it? How could we say no? That was it. We did it. I spent a whole day playing it. It was wonderful. It was stiff. It was not used very much. I think Richard had been losing interest in programming it and all this sort of thing. Plus, he didn't play it. He was like Mr. Eastman. He wanted to use the roll player. And in fact, he had upgraded to using a computer to run it. So playing the keyboard was a new ball game, and it was sort of stiff and quirky. But by the end of the day, it was fun. It was really playing well. After I'd spent a day playing it, and then the crew all arrived to start taking it apart, he gathered all of us in the living room, said a few words, and what it meant to all of us was a very emotional moment.
Okay, well, I mean, everything has a beginning and an end, and so this is going to be the last music this makes in my home.
It was nice that he did this, the official last playing of the organ that would ever be at his house. And it was, we were glad to be part of that. It was, like I said, it was emotional.
It becomes a living creature, and he'd spent 15 years putting this instrument in playing order, and it was going to now leave and go live somewhere else. And it was just very sentimental. That's the best way I can describe it. First it went to Parsons Organ Company in Bristol, where it was unloaded and carefully stashed away until we could design a whole new configuration for it to go into the discovery room here, the room above the dining room.
We're fortunate because we have a team of people that have done many organ projects, and so we all contribute to these things, even though none of us worked for Aeolian. We only have observation to go on.
They're kind of our mentors. They're the pros, if you will, and they have been incredibly helpful to us.
It took a lot of coordination to work. We had a lot of meetings. We tried to keep the group from the museum and the volunteers all connected with what was going to happen, what needed to happen. This is probably our 5th or 6th historic job where we're following the original methods of the builder when we do a project.
People are always astonished to find out that you can cut an organ pipe, miter it over, and maybe even miter it back down, and it doesn't change the sound. It still works. It's like magic. So we had to do that with lots of our pipes and change the configuration of how tall they were.
Because this organ was not meant to fit in George's mother's bedroom. There was quite a bit of reconfiguring to do.
Project would never have been as successful without the dedication of the volunteers, helping out with every member at Parsons Pipe Organ, and it was just a great collaboration of minds, because this was a very, very complicated project.
What's happening?
We're hearing both organs for the first time
Right,
since
absolutely.
19-something.
1960s, yeah,
60s, right.
maybe 50s.
Right.
I can hear it, melody here, accompaniment up there.
I can hear it, it's fabulous.
I, for the first time, realized how the design that Eastman, Aeolian, Parsons, whoever had worked on this years ago, was working. Prior to then, I saw all these CAD designs and wires charts and things like that, and I was like, ooh, I hope all this works, you know, but when you stand in there and you actually hear the music in that space, it's a phenomenal experience.
It's Eastman's kind of vision coming back, that he knew that having another organ in here would really make a big difference in the sound.
It's doing it.
60 years it's been silent. Today, June 2nd, 2013, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Hooray! Hooray!
The uniqueness of the donation, the various skilled labor we had here, and those volunteers that were passionate about it and wanted to make it happen, and also the Parsons Pipe Organ Company's willingness to work with us on this project. So now we finally do have a North Organ chamber with pipes in it that can be played by any organist that comes now to play at Eastman House.
It's something about pipe organs. They are unique. They're not an electronic keyboard. They are incredibly unique. The sound, the feeling of the sound, even though these chambers are buried within the house, you still feel the sound. And that's something only a pipe organ can do.
To build something that is controlled by 12 volts DC, that's controlled by pneumatically operated pouches and bellows that have to react as fast as Harold Gleason could play it, and he was a very, very good organist, is genius.
Presets were almost non-existent.
What I see as the great opportunity is not only to be a place where organ students and faculty can come, not only to learn how to play a unique instrument like that, because there aren't many around in the country, but also then to be able to perform for live audiences of our visitors here, not only just on Sundays, but hopefully other days and times during the week. I'm hoping that now that we have this unique instrument with north and south and orchestral stereo sound, that word will spread of that and other visitors will come to see Rochester and see not only the pipe organ here at Eastman House, but the wonderful other pipe organs that have been restored in our community.
When you combine two instruments, they have to learn to play together. It's that way with even two violins. In an orchestra, you assemble a string section, the first violins, you change one person and the section sound will change. The same is true putting two giant pipe organs together. And as I play it now, already it's adjusting to itself. You can hear little subtle changes. The pipe vibrations of one instrument will make the pipe vibrations of the other one change slightly. I know it sounds mystical, but it's just physics. But it does work, and it's adjusting, and it's becoming one instrument. And I find it very intriguing that 947, the original South organ, has had to do this twice now in its life. This is its second partner.